Go to the Gold Coast again. Sam Mack is there.
We are. Good morning, Nat. And we wanted to check in on the Gold Coast. Of course, there's been lots of discussion and lots of pictures floating around, vision of the scarping that's been happening. As you can see, it's around a 3-metre drop. We're at Surface Paradise at the moment. We're joined by Aaron, who studied coastal engineering, so he is an expert on scarping. Good morning.
Hey, morning, guys.
This must be the busiest time in your life.
Oh, my phone's been ringing off the hook. But it's pretty normal for us. We only get called when things go bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to me, this isn't as bad as it looks.
Okay.
So for most people, when they see this, they go like, start freaking out.
Yeah.
But for me, I look at this and I go, it's not so much about what was lost, it's about what wasn't lost. Like, look behind us, all of the buildings are intact, all the roads are there, like the beach is doing its job, is taking the brunt of the force of that cyclone.
We were talking about this off air and you were saying that when a similar size cyclone hit in the 60s or 70s, it did take down buildings, it did take down roads, infrastructure, because it didn't have that buffer, almost like a retaining wall of sand in place. Is that right?
Correct. So during like the 70s and 80s, the Gold Coast Council at the time put in this terminal seawall, which is a rock wall that goes pretty much the length of the Gold Coast. And then in front of that, we built these, we call them urban dune systems. So it's man-made dunes in front of that to really take the buffer of these cyclonic conditions so that it doesn't come all the way back into the infrastructure and properties behind.
I am loving this. This is so fascinating. Learning so much this morning.
You
know, this reminds me of during COVID, how all of the epidemiologists were suddenly on air, on TV every day. This is your time to shine.
I know, we get called, we go all over the world doing these kinds of projects, and a lot of it was sort of bred out of the Gold Coast. So the Gold Coast is really known as like a hotspot and melting pot of coastal resilience strategies that now we take over to places like California and Dubai and the Maldives, and we do this over there.
I love that. After the weather, I want to talk about what next. You know, how will this resolve itself, or do we need to intervene? We'll talk about that, get some updates after your forecast. You can see over here, I'm noticing a lot more of these little grooves, almost like a sandy slippery dip, that people are kind of carving into the sand to give that access to the beach. We were staying at Broad Beach last night. A lot of people were on the beach, even though I don't think it was technically open, with access like that. Is that what's going to happen? Yeah,
so it's one of the first steps that the council will do is go along and basically knock this scarp down to make it more accessible. So that's really step number one. Step number two is, like this, most of the sand that you're not seeing here isn't lost. A lot of it's just gone out into the offshore sandbars. So that's what actually builds those offshore sandbars. And actually it's a natural process. So erosion happens, beaches are so dynamic. So when a storm hits, it'll hit into these dunes, rip out the sand, take it offshore, create those offshore sandbars, and that will slowly make its way back in naturally over time. So over the course of like months to even up to a year, that sand will start coming in. We're here on the Gold Coast.
We don't have time on the Gold Coast for that.
Where the beach is more than just,
These guys are already out their morning walk. Try telling people on the Gold Coast not to go to the beach.
We can't wait a year for things to happen naturally, so the council will step in. On the Gold Coast, we've got these really great coastal management strategies and methods in place that they can basically turn on taps, start pumping sand, get machines on the beach. So like I said, step one, basically level these scarps down so you can access the beach. Step two, dredge comes in, pumps that sand that's gone offshore, pumps it back inshore. Machines can help sort of like push that back up into the dune system. And then anywhere along the beach that the dune vegetation has actually been destroyed, which is not very much of it, they can replant the dune system and that'll take off again.
You're a wealth of knowledge. All of those years studying late at night finally come to fruition. Well done to Aaron, our scarping expert team. I feel like we're learning as a group, and this is really insightful, isn't it? And it's exciting because so many Aussies around the country are like thinking, when can we book that holiday? When can we go to the Gold Coast again? We want to enjoy the beaches. So there's your answer.
So interesting.